Hi, everyone, and welcome to CX Africa. And today we are going to do a recap on something that we did maybe I think a week or so ago, where we were talking about. We were really kind of talking about intra-African trade. So we're going to get started right now. This is made so that it can be really short and you guys can follow along with me. So I'm going to try and make this as short as possible, maybe 20 minutes, so that you can have a chance to, follow along. I know the other one was about an hour, so that might be pretty long for some people. So I'm just cutting this down so that it's a little bit shorter, so that you're able to follow along. So basically, what we covered in the first webinar was the fact that intra-African trade is really very low in Africa. So between African countries, trade is about 17%. So this is pretty small when you compare it to other regions. For instance, in Asia, intra-Asian trade is 59%, and in Europe, intra-European trade is actually 89%. So that's nearly 90%. So you see a lot of trade going back and forth. And I think that's really indicative of something. And what am I suggesting it is indicative of? I will be quite frank with you. It is indicative of the understanding of the other culture. And that is what I would like to propose to you today, which I think is missing right now. So I'm going to, make my screen just a little bit tinier so that you're able to see the next slide. So what we're going to talk about in terms of introduction here is that I believe that there's a great opportunity for increased African trade among countries and also throughout the diaspora. I think we're missing a huge opportunity here to do that. And I think one of the underlying issues that prevents intra-African trade or trade among different kinds of Africans is the cultural piece, which has really kind of stood in the way as far back as the times of colonialism, when we had others that were coming in and there was a slave trade going on because of consistent wars that were going on between these different kingdoms, these different tribes. So I want to encourage us to move beyond that. And so this is our course outline today. We're going to sort of appraise the situation. We're going to look at opportunities, the process, sustainability, and solutions. So let's go ahead with the situation. As I said before, intra-African trade is extremely low, which is only 17%. And to put that in a little context for you, intra-Asian trade is actually 6 times greater than intra-African trade. And of course, for maybe 3 times, I'm sorry, guys, it's 3 times greater. And then for intra-European trade versus intra-African trade, it's 4 times that amount, a bit over that actually. So we're really looking at a situation where we're not having those levels of connection that's going on. And one of the reasons we don't have that is because we don't have a general kind of understanding of cultures. And that is where we're going to look at our opportunities. Because there's so many young people on the continent, we have a great opportunity in terms of human resources. And of course, we all know that the continent has huge natural resources. So that's really not a question. If you have human resources, and then of course you have natural resources, the obvious result should be, productivity. Unfortunately, that is not the case, but we do have an opportunity there. We also have an opportunity with the diaspora in terms of the fact that you have a lot of people of African descent or directly immigrated from Africa who are around the world. You have them in the UK, the US, we have them in Australia, just a plethora of places, as well as in Latin America. So it's really important to see that we have a very large network. And the inability to create a network is really, I think, what stops robust trade from occurring. And while I do understand there's some issues of leadership and policy, I do think it's something that can be surmounted. But the only way those types of things get surmounted is if we start talking about cultural interchange. And that's the area where I think we're missing a lot of we're missing a lot of work in terms of cultural exchange. So what is the process for that? It's to really seek to understand other cultures. I think we have to move away from the idea that my culture is the only relevant culture, or it's the only culture that makes sense right now. You have to understand and seek to understand other cultures and the way they do things so that you are able to really kind of have better interactions with them. There's a book out there. I really can't think of the title, but it really talked about how to do business with different regions. And I think that African states really need to learn how to do business with their neighbors and other regions so that we have trade between West Africa and East Africa, trade between Southern Africa and Northern Africa. And we don't see that as much, which really could be changed. So I think the process of understanding culture is absolutely important, and we're not doing that. So I do want to focus us on understanding culture. These are some pretty important areas that we really do need to look at. Another area that I think we need to understand is the fact that you have to appreciate those cultures. Appreciation of culture is understanding the way people do things and then allowing them to do that, and not taking this moment to judge them for how their culture actually functions. And that's the only way that you can get things done, because remember, you're looking for areas of similarity so that you can do a business or some kind of commerce that actually benefits you both. Your goal is not to become that culture. Your goal is to work with that culture. And as long as you're comparing your culture with that other culture, then you're going to get your own culture in the way. You're kind of going to step on your own feet. And that's what you don't want to do. So there is a process to it. You have to understand that culture. You have to study it. And you also have to have some tangible connections to that culture. So as I said in the earlier webinar, you really do need someone from that culture that you can use as a consultant who can help you. And as for me being a consultant, I definitely can consult you on, the diaspora and people in the West and, African Americans, but I can also help you with others because I take the time to actually study these things and the international way in which you can do business and you can work with each other. So that's something really critical. Even if you don't really have that background, you can get it by accessing a person like me, and I would love to support you. I'm going to put my information at the end. So I think we need to first, of course, understand, and then, of course, we need to have this process of appreciating culture. And of course, then we have to kind of suspend judgment and we have to extend a level of grace to other cultures. And what that means is people aren't going to understand your culture and you're not going to all together understand their culture, and that's okay. You do have to make some baseline goals and rules that you can both follow so that there aren't any misunderstandings. You also need to know your own press. And I say this a lot. You need to know your bad press and you need to know your good press so that you know what you're going up against. Because when people meet you, they're going to think about the most preeminent thing that they know about your culture, whether it is, crime or drug dealing or, scams or whatever it may be. If this is in the public eye, then 9 times out of 10, regardless of the fact that it is another African culture, another African state, they are going to still think those things about you. So there is a process. And then, of course, sustainability. To keep these things going, there has to be a sustainable understanding about that culture. You need to understand that culture. And I would suggest, as I said before, to actually have someone from that culture, from that country, on your board or as an advisor, so that you're able to get an understanding of how to do business with people and what some of the more nuanced aspects are when it comes to that culture. And, one of the things that I remember there was a conversation. I can't remember where I heard it, but it was a guy, he was from Russia, and he was basically saying that when he came to the US, he didn't understand why everyone was smiling at him. And he thought that they were being tricky or something like that, because people don't typically do that in his culture. They don't smile unless there's a specific reason to do so. And so he didn't understand why people would just smile at him. And it really bothered him until he came to understand that. So there are certain nuances of culture you're not going to understand. And that is why having someone from that culture is so imperative. And on top of that, it's important for you to continue your understanding of that culture as you continue to do business. So I definitely want to encourage you to do that. And if you have a difficulty sort of interfacing with other cultures, then I would suggest you find someone to put on your team so that you are able to do that. It's okay if you don't have the tools or you're not able to develop them fast enough. Find someone who does have those tools to do that. I think African Americans are actually a great position to do that because of the sort of wide, inclusive way that they sort of interact in the world. So I really do think that all cultures have their benefits, but we have to use those benefits as they are. So I think every culture has something good about it, and we need to be able to take something from that in order to do really good business. So those are some of the points in terms of sustainability and moving things forward. We really have to go from a place of judgment when it comes to culture to understanding and figuring out how to interact. So I want to thank you for tuning in. We really do want to continue the conversation. And so in terms of solutions, like I said before, the solution is I think, to begin to start having those conversations and start setting ground rules for how you're going to interact with each other, because you can't have all of the ideas that you want from your culture and not represent theirs. So there has to be some sort of nice middle ground. And I've used the example of an intertribal marriage. So if you think about an intertribal relationship where you have two people from different tribes, they have to create a sort of happy medium. So maybe in her tribe, she requires, I don't know, maybe for the women to wear a certain kind of dress. That may not be something in his culture, but he's going to allow that because he knows that's from her culture. And maybe in his culture, men have to do some other thing. And she allows that because they have to create this sort of third culture. And so I want you to think of a third culture whenever you're doing business, intra-African business, so that you can understand we don't have to have a schism here. We don't have to, not be able to work together just because we have different cultures or we're from different ethnic groups. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. This year is my contact information. Definitely, I want you to reach out to me if you have any questions. And so since I tried to make this pretty quick, I don't really see any comments. This is just a live stream. I don't see any comments here. I want to invite you to connect with me. My email address is there. Definitely send me an email and let me know that you watched this video. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is my contact information. I'm going to make it just a bit bigger so that you can take it down. Okay, and you can reach out to me. And I do want you to look forward to the next webinar that I'm going to do, which will be coming up pretty quick. This one is going to be on African American culture. And so we're going to really sort of explore that. And since there's so many similarities, because all African cultures have similarities, which I pointed out in my micro class. So what I'm going to do is try to show you the differences so that you can understand them and so that you can interface better. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And definitely don't forget to contact me. There will be information down in the description. And I really do look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great day, guys. Bye.